Most people never realize it, but the hardest financial step isn't going from broke to middle class. It's going from middle class to wealthy. When you're broke, you're forced to change. You have to do something different just to survive. But when you're middle class, life looks stable. You've got a paycheck. Bills are mostly covered. You can afford a car, maybe even own a home. From the outside, it looks like success. And that's exactly why so many people get stuck there. The middle class feels comfortable enough to keep you from pushing further, but not strong enough to create lasting wealth. The biggest challenge is that most middle-class habits are designed to maintain comfort, not build freedom. People get trapped in a cycle where income and expenses rise together. As soon as a raise comes in, the apartment gets bigger, the car gets newer, and spending quietly adjusts to match the higher income. It feels natural because everyone around you does the same thing. But this habit ensures that no matter how much you earn, you're always living at the edge of your paycheck. Without breaking this cycle, you'll never create the financial gap needed to invest and grow. That gap is where wealth begins. It doesn't matter whether it's $200 or $2,000 a month. The key is having money left over consistently that isn't eaten by lifestyle. The mistake many people make is thinking they'll save when they start earning more. But the reality is, if you can't create the gap when you earn less, you won't suddenly do it when you earn more. Escaping the middle class requires learning to lock your lifestyle in place long enough to let income outpace expenses. That discipline is what starts building real capital. But saving alone won't do it. The middle class often falls into the trap of thinking savings equals safety. The money sits in a checking account or maybe a basic savings account that earns next to nothing. Over time, inflation erodes the value, and the safe option quietly becomes the riskiest one. A dollar that just sits will lose power every year. Real wealth comes when your money stops sitting still and starts working for you. That means learning to invest, not as a one-time thing, but as a skill you grow for life. The wealthy approach investing with intention. They know where their money is going and why. They don't just contribute blindly to a retirement account. They understand how their assets grow and how cash flow is created. For example, if they buy shares of a company, they know whether they're expecting growth through price appreciation or income through dividends. If they buy property, they calculate the rent it generates after expenses. Every decision is tied to a clear outcome. That's a major shift from the middle-class mindset, which is focused on stability rather than growth. And the truth is, you don't need to be an expert or start with huge amounts of money. What you need is consistency and curiosity. A few $100s invested regularly can grow more than thousands left sitting idle. Over time, you start to realize that the difference between the middle class and the wealthy isn't how hard they work at their jobs, but how hard their money works for them. Another quiet trap of the middle class is paycheck dependence. Most households run entirely on one income stream, the job. If that disappears, everything else falls apart. It doesn't matter if you make $40,000 or $140,000 a year. If all of it comes from your employer, you're still one decision, one downturn, or one layoff away from starting over. That dependency creates stress and keeps people playing it safe. The wealthy don't rely on one source. They build layers of income that come from different directions, so no single event can wipe them out. This doesn't mean you need 10 businesses or massive real estate portfolios to begin. It starts with one step, earning money that doesn't come from your main paycheck. Maybe it's dividends from an index fund. Maybe it's renting out part of your house. Maybe it's a small online business that sells something simple like digital templates or tutoring services. That first $100 outside of your salary is more important than it looks. It shifts your identity. It proves to you that money can flow to you without a boss. Once you see that, you start looking for ways to grow it. That's when financial independence stops feeling like a theory and starts feeling like a path. The middle class often confuses higher income with progress. People chase bigger salaries, but if every raise is matched with higher expenses, nothing changes. That's why the real measure isn't income, it's cash flow. What matters is the amount left after covering expenses that can actually be used to build. Two families can both earn $100,000 a year, but if one saves and invests $20,000 while the other spends everything, their futures will look nothing alike. This is also why so many middle-class households struggle despite appearing successful. They own things, but most of what they own comes with debt. The new SUV in the driveway has payments attached. The nice home still belongs more to the bank than to them. Even expensive furniture or gadgets are often bought on credit. It creates the illusion of wealth, but the reality is liability. The wealthy focus less on what looks impressive and more on what produces income. They ask, does this purchase put money in my pocket or take it out? Over time, they tilt their balance sheet toward assets that generate, not just possessions that consume. Another issue is short-term thinking. Many middle-class families plan around monthly bills in the next holiday, but wealth requires thinking in decades. Compounding works only if you give it time. Waiting until you earn enough to start usually means you'll never start. That's why people who consistently invest small amounts from their 20s often end up wealthier than people who start investing large amounts in their 40s. Time is the multiplier that most people in the middle class underestimate. And escaping the middle class isn't just about money. It's also about how you value time. The middle class is trained to trade time for money. More hours mean more pay. Overtime means a bigger check. But this cycle has limits. Because there are only so many hours in a day, the wealthy think differently. They build systems, skills, and assets that generate income whether they're working or not. For example, a book that keeps selling, a property that keeps collecting rent, or an online course that people keep buying. These systems keep moving, even when you take a day off. That's the shift from working for money to having money work for you. Escaping the middle. Class is not a one-time event. It's not about suddenly getting a big break or landing a lucky investment. It's a gradual shift in how you operate day after day. At first, the changes feel small. Skipping unnecessary upgrades, putting aside a little more for investing, taking the leap to start a side project. But over the years, those choices add up. What once felt like sacrifice turns into opportunity. What once felt like risk turns into stability. And this is where most people misunderstand wealth. They think it's about big, dramatic moves. Selling everything to start a company, flipping houses overnight, or trying to guess the next stock that will explode. But the real escape doesn't usually look dramatic at all. It's quiet, steady, and consistent. The people who get out of the middle class aren't always the ones chasing quick wins. They're the ones who make money decisions most people avoid because they seem boring or slow. Eventually, you realize the escape isn't just financial, it's mental. You stop comparing yourself to neighbors, co-workers, or friends. You no longer measure your success by what car you drive or how new your phone is. Instead, you measure by freedom, by how many choices you have, by how little stress money brings into your life. That mental shift is the real break from the middle class. Because once you think differently, you act differently. And once you act differently, your results are no longer average. Escaping the middle class doesn't mean rejecting stability. It means building a deeper form of stability. One where your lifestyle is supported by assets, not just wages. It's a stability that grows on its own, even while you sleep. At some point, your wealth starts creating more wealth, and you realize you've crossed the line. You're no longer just surviving month to month tied to one source of income. You've built something that works for you. That's the true definition of financial escape. It's not about showing off, and it's not about sudden success. It's about reaching the point where money is no longer your main concern, You're not stuck in the same cycle as everyone else. You've chosen a different path, and the payoff is freedom. Freedom doesn't mean you stop working altogether. It means you work because you want to, not because you have to. You could still choose to stay in your job, build your business, or chase new projects. But the difference is choice. You're no longer trapped by bills that force you to keep showing up. You're in control of your time, and that's something money alone can't buy, unless it's managed the right way. This stage also feels different from what most people imagine. It's not flashy, and it doesn't come with a sudden moment where everything changes overnight. Instead, you notice it in small ways. You stop worrying when an unexpected bill shows up.